Glad you could join us for another video as we discuss the Bible, the scriptures, but primarily knowing God in the text. One of our hopes is that not only will you know the words on the page, but really get to know the God of the words on the page, that the scriptures reveal God and his ways, his plans for us. So we study the scriptures, not just so we can be able to quote the words, but we can get to know God as revealed in scripture. That's what this channel is all about. So thank God for all of you that tune in. And for those who are new, welcome. If you haven't done so, please do me a favor, like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel if you can. Just a real simple, easy thing to do to help us out. Comment, as one of our passions is to teach people about the scriptures, but also how to study the Bible. It's important to be able to study the Bible as well as being taught by somebody else. But we'll talk more about that in other videos. Today, we are talking about the book of Proverbs as we continue in our journey through summarizing the books of the Bible. If you missed any of the previous ones, go back and check them out. We believe they'll be a blessing to you. The book of Proverbs. The book is a collection of sayings and poems based off observed experiences. A collection of sayings and poems based off observed experiences. So Solomon and the other few writers are writing sayings in expressive language, noticing things and describing the lessons in metaphors. And we're going to get through this in different sayings that are expressive language, saying it in a way that's easy for us to remember. Go to the ant, you lazy person, you sluggard. So using sayings, expressive language, so when you're reading it, you'll often get an image, a picture in your mind of what you're reading so it can be easily remembered. So when you read the book of Proverbs, if it's sayings, it's poems, you have to understand that when you're reading the book, that Solomon and the other few writers are using metaphors. Number one, metaphors. They're using allegories, parallelisms. You'll see word plays, parables, alliterations, and more. So you're seeing a lot of metaphors, okay, in the book of Proverbs, a lot of allegories, parallelisms. You'll see some parallels. They'll parallel two different things like Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. You'll see wordplay. You'll see things like parables. You'll see alliterations. Like in one of the Proverbs, I can't remember the chapter and verse, it will talk about how a lazy person will stay in their house because they'll say there's a lion out in the street. Is there a literal lion out in the street? No, the proverb writer is using these examples, these sayings, these metaphors to describe who people are, why we do the things that we do. So we read these metaphors and they're pointing us to a reality. We're reading these allegories, these parallels, these word plays, these sayings, these parables, these alliterations to gain the meaning from them, So they were written, watch this, these proverbs were written in a way for us to dig deeper and explore them so we can discover the meaning. They're written in a way, these sayings, these metaphors, these parables are written in a way for us to explore them, okay? So in other words, the meaning isn't always easily stated. The meaning of the proverb isn't always easily stated. It's not just immediately this is what it means. There are a lot of times where it will talk about dark sayings for us to explore, where we have to research, study to understand the meaning of the proverb. Proverbs tells us that kings search out a matter. In other words, God doesn't hide things from us. He hides things for us. And our job is to search out the matter. Our job is to study. Our job is to research, to understand what is the meaning of this proverb, this metaphor, this parable. And you even see Jesus speaking in parables, speaking in allegories, using metaphors in the Gospels to explain his point, using human experiences, human things for us to understand. And when we study the parable, we get the heavenly truth. Jesus spoke in parables, and The disciples come to him, we don't know what you're talking about. Jesus says, to them I speak in parables, but to you I speak plainly. So the reality is that we see throughout Scripture metaphors, allegories, parables, we see proverbs. And our job is to study. Now, why does God do this? Because there is growth in exploration. There is growth in exploration. So God will use these metaphors for us to dig deeper into them so we can gain something from the study, because there is growth in exploration. One of the challenges that I have with a lot of us in society is we want quick answers and quick techniques, quick how-tos. And I'm not against how-tos, but everything doesn't come through a how-to. We want such certainty, in order for us to gain knowledge, when an old school historic way of learning was the teacher would teach, but wouldn't always give the student the answer, but would give the student a journey to discover the answer, because there is growth in exploration. It's almost like term papers. I can't stand writing term papers, but I've learned that while I'm writing term papers in school, there's a growth happening in me as I'm studying the subject. But without doing the term paper, without doing the study to get the answer, the growth wouldn't have happened. So we study so we can grow. We explore so we can develop. So we read the book of Proverbs, study the metaphors, study the Proverbs so we can learn the meaning. In the book of Proverbs, you'll notice that you'll see some one-line sayings, and you'll also see extended poems. You'll see like a one-line saying, and it'll move to the next topic. And then you'll see at times where they extend the thought throughout the chapter. You'll see many of the Proverbs where the first line makes an observation, and then the second line develops that observation, contrasts that observation, or motivates based on the observation. So it'll tell you what he's saying, and then the second line will, boom, come in there to develop the thought, contrast the thought, motivate the thought. So the righteous will do this, but the wicked will do this. The first line, the wise will do this, but the fool will do this. So you'll see where they'll contrast the thought, or they will develop the thought. Proverbs, watch this, y'all, are meant to give wisdom and counsel for how to live. So we study the Proverbs so we can get wisdom and counsel for how to live. Now, what's interesting about this book is that the beginning of Proverbs, the beginning of the book, starts off in, I believe, chapter 2, talking about Lady Wisdom. And we're going to talk about Lady Wisdom a little bit later. And then ends with a woman of means. It starts with Lady Wisdom and ends with a woman of means. So that as you go through the book, wisdom will lead you to substance, means, a lifestyle. We also see in the book, around chapter 2 or 3, I believe it is, a father teaching his son to love wisdom. And then it ends with an adult living in wisdom. So we learn to love it so we can learn to live it. Now, the purpose of the book of Proverbs is stated in chapter 1. In chapter 1, he talks about that these Proverbs are for wisdom and instruction. Now, when you think of wisdom, I want you to think of the practical application of what you know. Wisdom is the practical application of what you know. You can know something and not be wise, because knowing that doesn't lead to doing does not lead to wisdom. Really, knowing and not doing anything about it is foolish. So we read the book of Proverbs for wisdom, so we can learn, know, and do, as well as receive instruction. The book of Proverbs, according to chapter 1, is meant to give us insight, awareness, revelation. Also, instruction in wise dealing, so we can learn to live in fairness and equity, learn to live a righteous life. It also states that gives prudence to the naive and knowledge to youth. So we go in here to learn so we can get some prudence, some self-control, some awareness of how to live, and knowledge in our youth. It talks about in chapter 1, a wise man is revealed, one who hears and does. The book of Proverbs is meant to give us understanding so we can become people of understanding. And how do we know we're people of understanding? This person seeks counsel. People of understanding seek counsel. I don't know it all. I need somebody to share with me what I don't know and share with me things I don't see. He also talks about understanding proverbs and riddles. Our ability to study Proverbs helps us learn through metaphors. And then the fear of the Lord. And Proverbs also shows us that fools despise wisdom and instruction. So it starts off in chapter 1 about these proverbs are meant to teach us wisdom and instruction. And then a few verses later says a fool will despise wisdom and instruction. So before you even get into the rest of Proverbs, Solomon outlines from the very beginning, are you going to be wise when you read this book, or are you going to be a fool? Are you going to read it for wisdom and instruction, or are you going to read it and despise what you're learning? Which means when you come to this book, you have to, just like it actually reading the Bible in general, you have to learn to submit your biases and your thoughts and be open so you can learn. Because some of these verses are going to be a gut punch. It's going to turn the mirror around on you and show you where you're acting wisely and where you're acting foolishly. Because only fools despise wisdom and instruction. Wise people are learners. Foolish people think they know everything. Wise people are, watch this, the older you get, the more wise you should become. And what is that? The more you realize, the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. The more you learn, the more you realize, I don't know much at all. But only fools grow up in life and think they know everything. When you're young, you think you know it all. When you're older, you start realizing you really don't know as much as you thought you did. This is why we always hear that youth is full of folly, because we think we got it all together. We know more than our parents, more than our teachers, and then come to find out we get a little older and they know what they're talking about. So the themes of this book, I'm going to highlight some themes of the book of Proverbs. One of the main themes is the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord, the reverence of God. And Proverbs says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, the start of knowledge. That you, watch this, y'all, you can be book smart, but not be spiritually knowledgeable. You can have a high IQ in life, but be spiritually foolish. So what we're talking about here is the fear of the Lord that opens up knowledge, understanding, and recognizing that we don't know it all. But it starts with a reverence for God in his ways, honoring God and wanting to please him. We also learn one of the biggest highlights is wisdom and folly. Wisdom and folly, wise and foolish. And we see this described through the book of Proverbs in feminine terms. Wisdom is seen as Lady Wisdom, and folly is seen as Lady Folly. One leads to life, and the other leads to death. One leads to life, Lady Wisdom. The other one leads to snare or a death, Lady Folly. And every single day, we are at war with wisdom and folly. We hear wisdom crying out in the streets, according to Proverbs chapter 1 and 2. We hear wisdom crying out in the streets, but also we hear Lady Folly calling out to us too. One, watch this, y'all, Lady Wisdom is calling us to her so we can have life. Lady Folly's trying to lure us into a trap for death. You notice the difference. One is trying to lure us in. God doesn't lure you in, he draws you in. There's a difference. A lure is when a bait is put out there with the hopes that, like an animal, we'll be so desirous of the bait, we don't pay attention to the trap. God doesn't hustle us in. He draws us in with loving kindness. He draws us to him. So wisdom has a voice and foolishness has a voice, which means you have to be careful of what and who you listen to. Just because somebody sounds wise doesn't mean they are wise. Wisdom and folly. We also see throughout the book of Proverbs instruction from a parent to a child. And the instruction is embrace wisdom and understanding while you're young so it can guide you throughout life. Don't be foolish and act like you know it all. Now, even if you're 40 plus, you can still learn wisdom at this time. Embrace wisdom and understanding. Wisdom is the principal thing. And in all you're getting, get understanding. Seek wisdom. Pursue wisdom. Write them on the tablets of your heart. Put wisdom around you. Why? Because it will keep you. It will hold on to you. And you see this in the first couple of chapters of Proverbs. So we learn instruction. We read it like a parent is talking to a child, which means don't be foolish and act like you know it all. We also learn about understanding. In all you're getting, get understanding. Get this. Why? Because understanding, if I can use it in simple terms, it's like the old TV shows when the light bulb, ding, and the person finally got it. That's understanding. Understanding isn't just knowing, because you can know something and not understand it. Understanding, watch this, y'all, is when you finally get it, it clicks. And so it's knowing and understanding. The goal of knowledge is to lead to understanding, where I know it and then I finally get it. And how do I know I got it? When my behavior starts to change. When I know I finally understand it when my conduct is different. So if I can put it like this, knowledge and understanding come together and produce a baby called wisdom. Knowledge and understanding come together and produce a baby called wisdom. Because wisdom is the practical application of what I know. But I'm not going to do it unless I finally understand it. It starts to click. So it's not enough to know a thing. It's do you understand that thing? And that understanding leads to a behavior change. We also see a topic of sexual purity. Control yourself. Control your passions. Control your desires. We see Proverbs about business and money. Go to the ant, you sluggard, you lazy person. Learn from the ant, one who has no master, but knows how to go out and get food. And watch this, not just get it, but learn to save it during the winter seasons. You see things about in all labor, there is profit. You see things about generosity and giving and helping people. You see things about getting into contracts that are fair and not, watch this, co-signing on loans and things like that. You see all these things about business throughout the book of Proverbs. You learn about business, you learn about money, all right, through the book of Proverbs. We also learn scriptures about anger. You see themes about anger. A soft answer turns away wrath. Proverbs warns us against holding on to anger. It warns us against saying things and doing things out of anger. Proverbs talks to us about self-control. A person who controls their feelings is someone who's stronger than an individual who can take a whole entire city. So we see Proverbs teaching us about us, that yes, you may have a feeling, but learn to control yourself. Learn to manage your anger and deal with it, because why? These things affect your entire life. We see a theme of counsel. A wise person seeks counsel. There's safety in the multitude of counselors. That before you make a decision, before things are established, go talk to somebody. Now, as adults, we have a hard time with this. It's funny how, as a pastor and working with people, it's funny how we'll get counsel for things that really don't matter and try to get grown and do things on our own when things that do. So we'll ask somebody about what color car we should buy versus getting counsel over should we buy that car and what rate should we get, etc. The important things we want to get grown in. When the reality is, before you make major decisions, you want to get wise counsel. Be careful who you get counsel from. Some people, just go ahead and do it. But they haven't thought through the process. They have been thought through how it's going to affect your life. Get wise counsel from people of wisdom, from people that know what they're talking about. And also, the book of Proverbs contrasts between the righteous and the wicked. How one lives, watch this, y'all, and the outcome of how one lives. How the righteous live and the outcome of living righteous. And how the wicked live and the outcome of living wicked. The book of Proverbs also gives us warnings beforehand. And I don't know about y'all, as the older I get, if I'd have listened a little bit earlier to the advice of some people, if I'd have just listened at certain ages, I wouldn't be dealing with, just like you, wouldn't be dealing with the things you're dealing with. It's not that God didn't warn us, we just weren't listening. So all throughout the book of Proverbs, you see these themes that we just talked about, and there are more, but these are the prevalent themes in the book of Proverbs. But ultimately, y'all, the real wisdom is Jesus. When you read Proverbs chapter 8, that's Jesus that you're reading about, because Jesus is the wisdom of God. So the proverb writer uses wisdom as a metaphor, as a typology of who Jesus is, because Jesus is the ultimate wisdom of God. So when we read the book of Proverbs, we read it for wisdom and instruction. And I got a question for you. How many things could we have avoided if we just listened and used wisdom? How many things could we have avoided if we just listened and used wisdom? Get in the book of Proverbs, y'all, and read it. I was reading this book. I can't remember the name of the book right now. And I did it in my own life, and I probably need to do it again. There are 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. Read a chapter a day. And do it every single month, a chapter a day. And the whole goal is, as you read it, you read through the whole book every single month and watch how your life starts to change as you grab hold of these wisdom traits, these wisdom principles. And that's the whole goal, is to take the Proverbs and learn wisdom and instruction. Hope you enjoyed this summary of the book of Proverbs. We're going to talk about the book of Ecclesiastes next. That's going to be a fun one. We're going to dig into that book and Solomon's thought process and how he believes all things are folly after he messed up. Hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't done so, again, please like, share, and subscribe. Join us on this journey. If you missed any of the other Bible summary videos or any of the videos, go back on the page and check them out. God bless you. Hope you're having a good day, and we'll see you later.